Hi, this is Ed, and welcome back to Global TV Talk Show. I'm in San Diego. It's a few minutes before 8 a.m. today, and today is July 16th, 2026. Our leader, Ron Cooper, and Marty Cooper also from the cooperculture.com will be joining us in just a couple of minutes, and also coming on to be an expert observer and commentator is Ken Lloyd, PhD, frequent guest on Global TV Talk Show. Today's topic is super interesting, very timely. It's about generations in the workforce. We're talking generally large companies, US and global, mostly US, but also global. And LinkedIn has measured our audience viewership of these kinds of programs for a long time, but increasingly focused on talk shows just like this. 30% senior level, very senior level, in companies having more than 10,000 employees. And 60% of the viewing audience in business are senior level in companies having more than 1,000. So I want you to understand what the gist of this program is all about. The topic is about generational change within companies. Older employees want stability, predictability. They know how things work. Gen Z in the workplace is restless. They want different things. So how does the management, the C-suite, deal with these changes? This is the topic today. We'll be right back. Welcome back to San Diego here in the Mexican border. San Diego is an international city. According to customs people on the border, which is about 8 miles from where I'm sitting today, more than 100,000 cross the border, Tijuana border, every day, legally. Global is what San Diego is. And today's program is about changes in the workforce, the demographics, and situational conflicts about how to get things done in companies. Ron Cooper, uh, very senior leader, coach, dealing with company execs on this and several other issues. And we're joined by Dr. Ken Lloyd from LA, PhD in organizational development, psychology. Uh, Ken, please introduce yourself much better than I just did.
I thought that was very good. Yeah, Ken Lloyd, been in management consulting for many years, graduate of UC Berkeley, UCLA for a doctorate, continued teaching part-time over at UCLA for many years, had a newspaper column that dealt with workplace advice, workplace issues, written several business-oriented books, and continued to do executive consulting and writing at this point.
Great. Ron Cooper and Marty Cooper, welcome again. We've been doing this a long time, all from the good offices of Stephen Howard. So I'm grateful, of course. Uh, Ron, we've had several different programs on super important topics, and I think, well, to me, this topic about generational change within organizations and keeping peace and keeping talent motivated and learning and development is absolutely the key to survival today. What do you think, Ron?
No, it's certainly what it is, and companies will necessarily exchange or affect, go through transformational, generational change I mentioned the word transformational. We are, those of us, three of us are boomers by definition. We have values that we have learned through our life experience, and those values sometimes, not always, align with those that are millennials, Gen X, and so forth. I would say, Ken and Ed, that there are some things that, yes, we certainly expect to change. We want to change. Certainly, technology is one of those. But ethics, legality, morality, those values, from my perspective, do not change. They doesn't matter how old we are. Uh, there are some expectations, and then if you are in a for-profit company, even a non-for-profit, you are there for a reason. You're probably there to serve someone to do something. And so if you're in a for-profit business, and you're hired by that company, you are by definition a liability. You're a financial liability. Someone has to pay your way. And the client normally would pay your way. That's dependent on what service, what talent you provide. And that's how a company stays in existence. Companies certainly will not stay in existence if they are experiencing a negative cash flow. So that's just one aspect of it. But when we talk about generational change and work balance, work ethics, and so forth, I'm very interested in the topic because yes, there's certainly some things that the younger generation, the changes, and so forth, but how can we adapt to whatever some of those changes are and accept and so forth? But there's some things that would cross the line. And I'm very interested in each of your perspective. And of course, Ed, your listeners, I'm very interested in engaging in a dialogue to learn how various people are dealing with what is necessarily going to be a generational change in business. Everybody who has a heartbeat is getting older, and we're going to be going through different life changes. So, Ed, Ken, that's where I am, and I'm very interested in your insights.
Well, thank you very much for being on the program again and deep diving here. The concept is to retain the Gen Z, and the Gen Z is frustrated by apparent misdirection or lack of direction that Gen Z thinks they need, meaning more opportunity, more travel, more thinking about social responsibility. And older people like me and others in the workplace, is that the role of the company? Oh, no, we got to make money. We got to score more sales. And so then Gen Z says, well, this is just play acting right now in this second, but develop me. I've got talent. Use my tech skills. Think about helping the population. And then consultant Dr. Ken Lloyd will say, that's probably a good idea to help develop talent. Ken, how do you do that? How do you bridge
That's
that?
probably a good idea to develop talent. Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting when we, the three of us, joined the workforce, the kind of overall framework was different. It was that we came in as newbies, as neophytes, to learn a craft, a trade, a skill, all the key functions of the job from those craftspeople who were experienced, more knowledgeable, and had done this. And now, with the newer generations coming into the workforce, we need to learn from them too. There's much more of that mutual learning. Granted, they can learn and should learn from us. We need to be receptive to their ideas, to their approach to work, to try to understand them. And one, you just use the word technology, and that's clearly part of it. But we do see that the millennials are looking for opportunities to learn, to develop, to grow. They want feedback. They want flexibility. They want focus on ethics and inclusivity. And those are all positives. And yet, to hitchhike on to Ron's point, we certainly on either side do not need to give up any of the core values: honesty, integrity, trust, respect. Those cut across all of this and underlie all of it. But the focus can be different in some of the other key areas that we've already just touched on.
Ron, how do you coach companies, executives, on how to deal with the young people?
Well, I think it's a matter of choosing to adapt to young people. And Ken Lloyd, as he always does, just has very stimulating thinking that the younger people certainly know technology, know things that we don't. We weren't raised with that kind of technology. So I'm a big, big believer, and I just certainly uh, agree with reverse mentoring, so to speak. Now, there are those who understand social media, understand artificial intelligence, understand computers, understand quantum mechanics, and so forth better than I do. I want to learn. And so let's learn together. Can we, through a psychologically safe workspace, learn together, share information? I don't want Ken Lloyd or Ed Cohen to be a threat to me if I were to share information with you and come to find out, well, gosh, my supervisor used that against me, that I just pushed myself out of a job because you two now know more than I do. You're more valuable than me. I would hope that we can work in an environment where we do want to share information. And so as we learn each other's talents and we know what each other knows, we share information that goes across the board. And as we have that culture that exists within our company, as we have that trust and respect for each other. We always mention trust and respect in these meetings, but as we have that and that becomes the core value, we do want to share information with each other because we are creating, we are not competing. That's one of the core values I like to instill and help leaders coach to have that type of culture.
Yep.
Sorry, did you say Ken?
Yes, I did. I'm
I didn't know
sorry.
you said Ken or yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I should speak
No,
up.
no, that's fine. No, I absolutely agreed with Ron's points on that. It's a world in which there is that great opportunity now to mutually learning from each other and to create a bona fide learning environment. And that's part of what we want. And it ties right in with the growth and development that the younger generation seek. And again, they've come through COVID, they've come through remote employment. They have great technology in their lives, essential to their lives, that was very different for them in their growing up years from what we experienced. And to recognize that that's not a divisive factor, that's actually a strengthening factor, that they can use our expertise. And frankly, it is there and it's valuable. And we can importantly use theirs more so in these generations than in the past. They bring a lot more to the job. At the same time, they've seen the world quite differently. They went through a lot of remote experiences at various points in their lives, depending on whether they're Gen X, Y, or Z. And then to come now into the workforce, a lot of them aren't, it's research shows, aren't as tied to the job as early as the boomers. And part of what they saw among either it's their parents or the parents of their friends was that adults are getting laid off. They stay on a job for 20 years and then there's a reorg, a redesign, a reconstruction of the firm. And these parents lost their work and they're kind of wondering, why should I devote all this time, energy, effort, full time, and make work my number one priority no matter what? Look what happened to my parents. Look what happened to my friends' parents. So that's there. It's an undercurrent, but this ties right in to what we as so-called leaders can do in an organization to build that level of trust and to value our employees and to focus on a future for them so that concern that, hey, they don't really care about me. Look what they did to dad. Look what they did to my mom. I think we want to keep that in mind and recognize that yes, we're in business and we do want to have a successful organization, but that success is going to come by building and working with and developing members of the team at all generations.
And Ken, I totally radically support everything you said. I want to build on what you were saying earlier about flexibility. That's one, but then also work ethic, and then tied with work-life balance. I'm going to give you an example that it may be somewhat common amongst us. Yep, you have been performing at that level. I will promote you to that level. Well, let's just say that you were a program manager, but yes, over a period of time, you've been functioning at what we consider just pick a title, senior vice president level. You've been performing at that level. You have demonstrated the fact that you can perform at that level. I will promote you to that level. Now, how about the person younger than us that says, I would like for you to do something a little bit extra to work maybe this area, and not necessarily put in extra time, but I'd like for you to do something just a little bit extra from what your job title, quote, ask of you. And that person says, nope, I am not going to do that until you first pay me. You must pay me before I would even consider working that level. I'm telling you, that has happened. I have worked with a person who said exactly that. Nope, I refuse to do what you're asking me to do because I will not perform at that level until you first pay me. I thought, okay, you have just described yourself, defined yourself. Now, in the context of flexibility, yep, I'd like to work whenever I feel like I want to work, come in whenever I want to, leave when I choose to. And is that a level of flexibility that you want? Well, if I have a business where I am serving consumers, and now my thought goes to a dentist who has a weekend practice because, quite honestly, people can't logically take off Monday through Friday because they're working. But Saturday is an opportunity for those who work Monday through Friday to schedule a dental appointment. The prospective dental assistant said, I refuse to work on weekends. That is not my definition of work-life balance. And the owner said, okay, that's certainly fine. That is your prerogative. But no, we share weekends here. That is a part of who we are, what we're about, that we don't assign people to work every weekend. We rotate that amongst every employee. And so he said, no, if that's your definition of work-life balance, I'm sorry, you won't fit here very well. Those are just some examples of how work-life balance, work ethic might define some people. And of course, I'm very interested in knowing how people, what their definition of those terms are, because you may or may not align with the values we have. Again, if I'm in even if a non-for-profit, I have to have a positive cash flow to be able to stay in existence, and people will pay for your services. So, Ken and Ed, that's some of my views of those topics.
And help.
Nope. Yeah, well, it's just to go on with Ron's point. It's a matter of truly understanding the jobs, the work, the requirements, the hours. What does it really take to perform successfully in this position? In some cases, it's going to be full time. I mean, you're going to be here, you need to be available extra hours. That's just by definition, that's the nature of the job. Others, maybe we can have some flexibility here, some extra movement in it so that individuals can pursue the work more to their liking and pursue other areas of interest as well. It just depends on the job. And we see this coming out in all kinds of areas. I literally yesterday read an article where it was a telehealth situation where a young individual went to an emergency room and needed medical help, and it was all provided remotely on screen, and it did not go well. And there was a major complaint that no doctor met face to face with this individual. Granted, that's an extreme case, but the point is that some of these positions and roles and functions by necessity are going to require full-time presence. In other areas, it might not. And we have to look carefully, again, at the job, the demands, the responsibilities, the components, what it leads to, and the individual motivations, drives, interests, objectives, and try to have some kind of a match and certainly a clear understanding. So when an individual does come into a job, that person knows and understands and agrees to the requirements, be they quite flexible or less flexible just because of the nature of the work, and come to an agreement as this is all being put together.
Ken, you stimulated my thinking that as a leader, we necessarily have to think long term, think ahead. Now, where I'm going with this comment is Ken and Ed, in this hypothetical example, you each represent a very specific talent that we're going to need in this company. Now, let's just assume, Ken, it's in the context of medical, and you have a medical specialty. And yep, we're at the end of the 8-10 hour day, whatever it is. Of course, you want to go home. But Ken, you are the only person that I can call on with this specialty. You are literally the only person who knows about this. Ken, I need to call you at home. I need to rely on your expertise. I might even need for you to get online to virtually work through and so forth. Ken, would you consider that? And if your response is absolutely not, I would not. No, I'm going to disconnect my phone. I'm a whatever. No, when I'm home, I'm alone. You don't contact me. I don't want anything to do with this business. And if that's your work ethic, if that's your value, okay, I don't necessarily, maybe I cannot change you, but you may or may not have a long-term presence in our company because of that attitude. And so what I'm building up to is we need to understand each other. I, as a leader, need to be long-term thinking to say that Ken, Ed, I just need for you to know that, hey, you two each represent a specialty that we're only one deep in this company. And I might just have to call on you when you're at home. I just want you to know that may be something we're up against because we have a customer who may have a need. Who knows? They're 12 hours away. And so, can I call on you? And I would hope you would respond yes to that. That it's certainly not going to be an everyday occurrence, but hey, we've got something very unusual happening here. But I would hope that you would be agreeable to that. That's a part of your value system, your work ethic. But not everybody's going to agree with that. But I want to encourage everything I can do. And when I'm coaching leaders, be long-term thinking to know exactly what your company is about, know about any shortfalls that you have. And hopefully those shortfalls are temporary. We'll work through it. But until we do, this is what we're dealing with.
What I think is so, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ed.
No, I was just going to ask for guidance regarding timing. Do either of you have a hard close coming up?
No, I've got to be out of the room by 41 minutes from now, but I think we'll be complete before then.
Yeah. Okay. Ken?
I'm on at 8:45. I have to sign off.
All right, good. It's now 8:18 here. All right. Please continue, Ken.
No, I was just going to say what I think is so valuable in a discussion like this is that you see, and Ron clearly emphasizing as well, the emphasis on individuals. I hear so much stereotyping. Oh, these millennials, they come in late, their attitude is this and that. They don't really focus on the job. I don't want to hire them. And you know what? That's so wrong and so unfair. Because in any generation, one could say that. So the idea is stay away from the stereotyping, the generalizing, and the bias that goes along with it, and understand these individuals as individuals, and to clarify what we're looking for and what they're looking for, and to make sure we have a complete and full understanding going forward. There are plenty of millennials who work as hard as can be. And frankly, a lot of boomers, hey, they're just kind of marking time. Let's not stereotype anybody. Let's learn about the people individually and what we're offering and what they're seeking, and how can we put together a productive working relationship.
Ken, that's so very important. It reminds me of just yesterday. We had an HVAC technician come to our house, just a routine check, just to make sure everything's working fine, millennial. Well, we right away engaged in stuff other than, well, I found out that he was very thoughtful about his finances, where he's living, and so forth. And here's a millennial, a long-term thinker. And I said, wow, 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 this is, and we engaged just immediately in a very, very productive conversation. I said, oh man, this is just great to hear you say this, because there are any number of people. Now, I'm not characterizing millennial, X, Y, Z, boomer, anybody. There are people who are not long-term thinkers, and they're living for today. And I said, you are a long-term thinker. I said, when you get to my age, you will have life choices. You will have, and I can guarantee you that, because as we are talking, he is making financial choices that are long-term oriented. And I said, I will tell you, you will have the choice whenever you choose to do things. You are on the right track. And what I'm trying to do is affirm what he is doing, because I have probably 50, 55 more years more life experience than he does. But my purpose is to affirm what he is doing. You are definitely on the right track. You keep that discipline up. And I said, yeah, for virtually everything Marty and I have done throughout our life, meaning as we get promoted, no, we don't spend it. We invest it. We bank it. And so we live on what we have remaining. We don't live on what we wish we had, but any of those kind of things. But those, Ken just very well said, don't stereotype people. Please don't. It's just people are as they are. So in the context of a work ethic and generational, not everybody thinks the same. There are many people who think exactly as we do. But as a leader, you establish the values and the work ethic within your company, and those people either do or do not align.
I'd like to take a few minutes of your time now as we come to a close in about 17 minutes or so. Ron, here's a scenario, and Ken, please comment. Ron, your company is expanding to serve this kind of customer and will need these kinds of products. You have young talent who could possibly learn how to get there with you, help you get there through their technological expertise and knowledge of how to apply the tech to workplace situations with the right training. So the young people are going to say to you, Ron, as an executive, senior, you're going to train me? Or are you going to hire a consultant to come in, and therefore I cannot help you? Ron?
Oh, and I was to that, Ed, I would say to that, here's a thought I have. Let's have a meeting. And the purpose of this meeting is, here's what I'm thinking. And I want to share this idea with you. My thought is there's a need in the community. And I think we can meet that need. However, to do that, we're going to need additional talent. We're going to need to learn more about technology. We may have to procure whatever it is to meet this need. Now, my thought is we could maybe do that from within. We don't necessarily need to hire new people, but it would be a matter of adapting to whatever the training we need to do this. Okay, now, as I'm telling you what I'm thinking, I have an idea on the table, so to speak. Now, I'm hoping that everyone who's in this meeting, everyone with whom I'm addressing, will say, I tell you what, you have just stimulated my thinking, as Ken Lloyd always does with me. Ed, you do as well. You stimulated my thinking, and I tell you what, here are some ideas. And maybe within 30 minutes or so, we can build on an idea. Maybe it's one of those things. I tell you what, sleep on this for however long and come back. Let's continue to work on this until we reach a solution that says, yep, we will. And so when I, as a leader, stimulate people's thinking, I value Ken. I value Ed. I value everybody in the company. I said, I value the way you think. As you bring ideas to the table, we can put this together. Now, help me think through this. I may have my, and certainly I will have my own ideas, but Ken and Ed, I want your ideas. Are we going to need to hire somebody to reach the goal? Can we do it from within? And I'm going to tell you, there are some people who would say, you don't need to hire anybody. I am so motivated within that I would take it on as a challenge to learn this, and it would be just very gratifying to me to say I did it. I did it. But you know, Ken and Ed, that's a lot to do with the leadership. Can I even inspire people to want to do that? Or is the company culture such that you wouldn't care the smallest whit if I did it or not? In fact, I don't know that I even care because I don't know that you care. If there's that kind of an attitude, I'm being a little bit sarcastic and maybe over dramatic. But if that is what other people believe to be my culture, my values, I'm not going to inspire people to lean forward and go the extra mile. I hope I do inspire other people. We've spoken of it here before. Man, you tell you what, you stimulated my thinking even while I was at home. And I'm okay. I'm mowing the grass. I'm in a brain dead, brain vacant activity. I'm thinking about this, and I think, wow, okay. But yes, I'm gratified that I'm with leadership who cares enough about me. They've clearly identified what needs to be done, and I am very grateful that I can make a contribution. When we have that type of culture, we are definitely going to move forward.
Good.
To listen as Ron described it, you notice the frequent use of the word we, and it's not I. And we've all been in meetings where leaders have come in and put up the PowerPoint or gone to the board or whatever year in which they did this and said, this is what's happening from now on. This. And people sit there and either resent it, reject it, ignore it, as opposed to being involved and engaged in the process. And that's part of the culture of the organization that Ron is describing, that we're based on we listen, we care about your ideas, your inputs, your thoughts. As Ron said, go think about it, mull it over, come in with your ideas. We can build, because frankly, as a leader, we don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. I want to learn from my team. There's that double-edged learning side of it. But when we're talking about the kinds of changes to implement in an organization, we can not only generate better changes, which we will by having the employees participate in it, but they're also far more likely to be accepted and appreciated and built on, as opposed to dumping someone on the employees because we're so smart, we know that this is what has to be done, and we're probably wrong. And then they get it, and they say, I didn't have any say so. If they had asked me, this never would have happened. And then we get that resentment. And frankly, that builds dissatisfaction. And when employees are dissatisfied, psychologically, they are going to go to try to find something that is more satisfying to their needs, AKA they're going to look for another job, a job that is more fulfilling to them. So if we want to have employees who are more satisfied, more engaged, more productive, it makes sense on every level to use the approach that Ron is talking about. And let's go with we and engage our employees and include them and truly value them, not perfunctory. Yeah, we go through the motions, we pretend we're interested, then we do whatever we want. That's just as bad, if not worse, because then you've wasted the employees' time even more. I gave some good ideas. They didn't even listen to me. They didn't really give me decent feedback. They just went ahead with what they were talking about in the beginning. It's a great formula for dissatisfaction and turnover.
And Ken, again, you so articulately said that I know Ken's talents. I know his personality. I know him. I know Ed. I know Ed's strengths. I know what his home life is like. I take the time to learn who my people are. Yes, we will go further. We together. When I know exactly who you are, perfunctory, yes, hollow. To me, these are synonymous terms when we're addressing this kind of thing. But people will know if I'm just speaking perfunctorily, in other words, speaking with hollow terms, or do I genuinely mean what I'm saying because it's not just a one-time expression in a meeting? No, it's throughout the day, throughout the week. Yes, this is who we are. This is our branding statement, so to speak. And when this is working together, all of us, yes, the we works together in we are not going to be of the mindset. Here I'm going to sound like I'm labeling some people, but yeah, quite honestly, I want to be paid 40 hours a week, but I only want to work 25 hours a week. And hey, that's just who I am. I think I deserve it. And hey, that's who I am. And that's what I expect from you. And so those are some of the differences in values that, we may have to work through. Well, in fact, we will have to work through. But when we are genuinely working together, we know each other. And yes, I know Ken's strengths. I know Ed's strengths. And I know how to inspire you to function at your very best.
So Ron, how would you, you're the senior executive owner, uh, and I'm role playing for a minute. Uh, Gen Z, highly skilled in technological applications. But right over here is a boomer, millennial approaching boomer, and they don't want to jeopardize their next 10 years. They want security. There's conflict there. So what is a way for you to make sure that there's a communication openness and there's a plan for each to be a contributor?
Well, from my perspective, I think it's incumbent on leaders to one more time. I'm going to say think ahead. That is, think as far ahead as you can, 5, 10 years in what will it take? I mean, we have to be financially stable. What will be required to have the positive cash flow we need to sustain everybody? Now, that's one part. And now the other part is to the leaders are thinking ahead. What is it that we see that meets a need that can keep our company long-term sustainable? And then what talents do we have to meet that need? But again, it is putting all of this together. Now, there's some things, I mean, in the context of numbers, I don't necessarily, I'm not the right person to know all the numbers I need for my company. I want to have the right people who know all the numbers. Do I have everything in place that will keep my company long-term sustainable, or do I need to put additional effort at whatever number I need? But I need to translate that to people. How am I going to keep my company financially stable for the long term? So I, as a leader, need to have the right people in place to help me assess what is everything, quote, behind closed doors, under the tent, and so forth. I don't need to express all of that to everybody because there are people who don't care a whole lot about that. What they care about is my long-term stability in this company. Should I choose to hopefully stay here the next 10 years, I would hope that I have the opportunity to do that while being satisfied that, yes, I am gainfully employed here. That's a matter of knowing your people, but then also having the financial stability to make sure that everything is in place long term. As a leader, we have got to know what everything is about, and I need to hire the right people to help me think into, because I may not have the talent nor maybe the patience to understand what all the numbers are, but I've got to have someone smart enough to tell me, yep, we're on track, or nope, we need emphasis in whatever place. But I would say, okay, my goal is to be a very viable company for the next 10 years. This is what I foresee happening, and it's a crystal ball look, but it's working together to make sure that we have everything in place.
And how do you set up a training program to achieve that?
Well, the training program would be okay to have this long term goal for the next 10 years. what do we foresee in our looking into the crystal ball? What do we foresee is happening out there? And then, okay, what talent do we need to try to bring this to fruition? And then, do we have the talent from within? Will we need to maybe uh, have some people go to a different course, which might mean I'd say go to a course, which might mean, well, okay, how about taking X amount of time off to attend a course? Can we afford to do that? Or do we need additional people? But it's thinking long term how we're going to do that, and how will we move forward long term and have the financial viability to make certain that we're not going to have to lay people off. Yes, have to. We're going to do everything we can to have the capital set aside to where we can withstand any economic downturns. But all that's a matter of thinking ahead. Ed, that's kind of a long answer, and it's we need more time actually to delve into all of that. But from my perspective, it is a matter of thinking ahead, knowing everything about your company, and those in your company having confidence that, yep, Ken, Ed, Ron, we're very confident you have thought through everything, that you're a good critical thinker. You've assessed every fact and factor, and we feel very confident you have carefully thought through everything, and you have reached a very informed decision.
Ken, 5 minutes left.
Yeah, well, so you would ask a question also about training, just to jump on that real quickly. We can have training programs, but it takes more than that. It really has to be the behaviors, the technology, whatever it is we're trying, in quotes, to have taught to the employees. We want to make sure it's being practiced. Training programs need to have what's called transferability. In other words, does whatever we're training actually transfer and apply to the job? This is something that can be used here. And frankly, a lot of the real training comes more from managers and their behaviors, because they actually serve as models, and whether they're working with the employees and building them and educating them. So yeah, we can have formal programs. And if we have formal training programs, we want to evaluate them, and not against saying, well, here's a questionnaire at the end. What did you think of this program? Yes, I liked it. I enjoyed it. All that's useless. What we really want is to have some specific measures ahead of the program that we're going to then go back to and look at after the individuals receive whatever that formal training is. Did the training impact these particular criteria? Did we see an improvement in X, whatever it is that we were training them for? So we're not just getting their attitude toward the program. We want to, number one, know not only that they learned, but they were able to apply it. And that's from the training program standpoint. And then certainly for managers to understand that really their role, in addition to everything else, is as a mentor and a coach and a guide and a counselor. I mean, we're doing more than just leading. Those are additional key elements of the process.
And as mentoring, coaching, and counseling and all of that is integral to our culture, yes, we are going to build people. And Ken, you're right on target again, that yes, are our training programs effective? Well, internship is one term we put to it, but it's mentoring. And as we have people who are hungry to learn, yes, through mentorship, counseling, and everything that we want to do to build people, it will happen as we have those people who are hungry to learn, hungry to train.
Ken?
Well, I'll tell you a crazy thought that went through my mind. Okay, can we do crazy? Both of your last names start with CO. When I see words that start with CO, communicate, cooperate, collaborate, co-marketing. I mean, CO words to me are among the most positive in the English language, and importantly, and in any relationship, whether it's at home or at work, those kinds of values that are just there. So I think of Cooper and Cohen, yeah, I got the good CEO starting with it. And you want to talk about co-marketing? Well, you guys are the ones. So yeah, I told you it's going to be crazy. So there you go.
Thank you. Out there, thecooperculture.com. Ken, You want to talk about what you're working on for the future of your life?
Just as mentioned quite earlier, doing more researching, more writing. Very interested in this particular topic with the various generations at work, and continuing some career coaching and guidance along the way for various individuals.
Great. Oh, this has been a breath of fresh air and very educational. Thank you for being again on Global TV Talk Show. And out there, we welcome your feedback and advice going forward. Send me an email to editor globalbusinessnews@gmail.com. Thank you. See you again.
Thank you, Ken and
Back to
Ed.
you. Enjoyed this as always. Be well, guys.